So basically what I'm going to show you here is just sort of a little quick video about how I use Procreate. So this is Procreate, and first you can see how I've organized the files. So I have a finished work stack, it's called stacks, where I just keep all of the things I've done, as well as the alternate versions I made of them of different sizes for uploading on different things. And then other than that, I have a stack for school and a stack for work and a little comic I made and some words and things and some abandoned stuff, and basically just every category of thing that isn't my finished work I keep in a little stacks of its own, so it's organized. But so then my Procreate main screen doesn't get insane. Also, I've blacked out any ones that might be revealing my personal information. And then here is a little menu of all the sizes you can make. And what I have in there is just various sizes, but the one I use the most is the 6K because that's sort of the minimum size for use on Society 6 for the majority of their products on there. In the brush menu, I almost exclusively use Procreate defaults. I like to sketch with the technical pencil, ink, and draw with the script pen. Sometimes the hard brush for big areas, big shapes. I also like the noise brush for texture, and then these other ones are just sort of alternates to the script pen depending on sort of the look that I'm going for. And the charcoal is for sketching, but bigger. So, yeah, and they're all pretty much presets. A few of them I downloaded, but I don't really know where I got them from, so I'm sorry about that. I can look for it if anyone really cares. Just let me know. When you hit the 6K size, you're gonna not be able to make more than 8 layers, which is not really an issue for me normally, but if that's an issue for you, you might need to work smaller. I don't know. I mean, I tend to I'll duplicate the file and then I'll flatten it so I don't destroy old layers in case I need to get them back, but then I can sort of progress, which is not necessarily the cleanest way to work. But so here I'm showing you my color palettes. I use Color Hunt for most of them, and I just sort of pick them and I put them in there using the values panel, and then I have some of my favorite ones saved for use. And then I'm just going to go through my gesture controls really quick. So I don't use the smudge or the erase tool. Well, I use the erase obviously, but I don't use a specific shortcut for it. The assisted drawing is kind of a new thing, but I haven't really played with that yet. Eyedropper, obviously. Quick menu, I don't use that too much either. Full screen I use a lot, so I just have it as 4-finger tap because that's pretty easy. Clear layer, I also have a shortcut for, but I have never ever used that, and I don't really intend to. And then these last few I don't really have shortcuts for, or at least I don't really use them. I have an Apple Pencil, so I don't make my finger really do anything, but you can depending on your drawing situation. The drawing guide is also sort of a new thing. It's I mean, it's not new, but they've updated it. Anyway, you can play with that. I don't really know much about it. And then I was just showing you that you can export a video of your process. The only of those effects that I use is the hue, saturation, brightness, but very rarely also. And then there's a selection tool and a moving tool. So pretty basic stuff. So I'm just gonna start sketching here. So I'm using the technical pencil with just black selected, and I use the I think it's called classic, or the square color selector, not the circle, because then I can get pure black and pure white really easily. Whereas with the circle, I know that you can double tap to get white, but I don't know, I just find it easier to quickly drag to a corner for both of them, and then I can see where all the grays are and everything. So I finished my little sketch that I'm just doing for this video, and I made a layer and put it underneath the sketch, and then I'm selecting a color palette. So I'm sort of thinking through my options, and I went with that blue and white and yellow one, which I think is really nice. And here I'm just demonstrating that if you have the bigger brush size, it might come out a little fuzzy on the edges because of the resolution of the page. So you have to be, I draw with like a sort of middle-sized, this is the script pen, which is, I'm pretty sure, a default, it comes with Procreate. So yeah, so you have to, I use a little mid-size because then it doesn't ever get fuzzy on the edges. I'm not sure if it's a huge deal, but it just makes me feel better, so that's what I do. Sometimes I'll put the neck on a different layer, but just for the purposes of this, I kept it on the same with the head because it's easy. It doesn't, I'm not doing a ton of shading on this one, so it's not like crucial to have it on a separate layer. And then here I was just figuring out how I wanted the hair to like flow, I guess. And I went with kind of around the ear. And I almost filled it, and then I was like, wait, gotta outline the ear. So that's what I'm doing here. As you can see, I don't really follow my sketch exactly. Usually my sketches are more of like getting an idea for the shape, and then when I actually draw it, I like figure it out more precisely. And then I did the hair on top, and then I made a separate layer for the like hair that's farther back, if you understand what I mean. Like, see here how it's behind the head instead of in front. So yeah, I usually have my hair on 2 separate layers actually, because I know that you could do select and erase the hair, but then it leaves a little like tiny line, so I don't like that. This is just on the same layer as the top hair. I usually keep things of one sort of like category or color together in a layer. And you can see this is another example of the drawing deviating from the sketch. The eyebrows are sort of blobby and cute instead of like elongated. And then the rest of the face I'm doing like just super simple, especially just because this is a little demo, so I didn't feel the need to be like all that advanced. I'm just sort of giving you an idea of like my process. So for the facial features, I went with the darker blue just to sort of define it, but not like give it a hard edge, which is another reason I really like this color palette, because you have like 2 contrasty colors like white and yellow, and then you have like 2 colors you can use as sort of like not too contrasty with each other. Oh, here's another thing. If you want to use alpha lock, you can just swipe with 2 fingers from left to right on the layer you want to lock, and then it'll show a little like squares in the background of it, and that means that you can't draw outside of that layer. I will show a little bit later another option for how to draw within a layer without like drawing on that layer, like if you want to draw in a separate layer. Yeah. So with this one, I'm showing you how in alpha lock, if you have a color and another color within that like shape, and you want to fill with the darker or the sort of similar color, it'll fill the whole shape. But if you use a very contrasted color and fill that shape, it won't fill the rest of it. So it's just a weird thing I've seen happening with the alpha lock setting, is that, I guess not necessarily with alpha lock, but if you're like filling a section, if you drop that little circle on there to flood, it will fill anything that it sees as like similar. I don't know why it does that, and I kind of hope they change that because it's annoying, but and I can't see any real use for it, but I don't know, maybe there's a use and I'm just not figuring it out. Anyway, so here's more drawing. This is just again on the alpha locked head shape, so I'm not I'm drawing right on top of that, so it's kind of like, if you're a real layer snob, it's kind of destructive to the layer that you're drawing on because you don't have that shape without the thing on it, without the shadows on it, if that makes sense. But I'll show you the other option, I think right here. Yeah, so if you click select, if if you double click on a layer and you click select and then you make a new layer, you can draw within the layer that you selected without being on that layer. So then you can turn off and on the top layer that you made, and it's its own like separate entity. But the downside of that is that you run into the layer limit a little quicker, and at the size I'm drawing at, the 6K size, that can be an issue. So I tend to do alpha lock, and then I duplicate, and then I keep drawing as I merge things down, but then I still have my older layers later. So now I'm just showing how you can change the background by drawing, or by selecting from your palette, or you can change it by like dragging the little sliders around. And I went with sort of the light whitish color from my color palette. And then I just added a really sloppy version of my logo, my little signature there. Check mark, we're done. So then I showed how you can like export different types. Or you can export the video, or you can just leave it in there and go back to your gallery. Hope you enjoyed this, and good luck in your Procreate adventures. Bye!